You did not choose to feel this way. You have a phone in your hand almost every hour of the day. You have apps designed to connect you to people instantly. You can text, voice note, video call, post, react, comment, and follow, all within 30 seconds. You can see what your friends had for breakfast, watch a stranger across the world share their deepest fear, and get a reply from someone in a different country before your coffee gets cold. And yet, there is something that happens late at night, after all the notifications have quieted down. When you put the phone face down on your bed and stare at the ceiling, something that does not have a clean name. Not sadness, exactly, not boredom. Something closer to emptiness, like you spent the entire day surrounded by people and somehow came back with nothing. You have probably noticed that some people in your life seem genuinely confused by this. How can you be lonely? You are always online. And you do not have a good answer for that. Because from the outside, it does not make sense. From the outside, you are the most socially connected version of a human being that has ever existed. You have followers, you have group chats, you have people who like your posts within minutes of sharing them. But there is a strange thing that happens when connection becomes frictionless. When it becomes instant, endless, and always available, it starts to feel like something else entirely. It starts to feel like noise. There is a concept researchers have been studying called social snacking. The idea that passive social consumption, scrolling through someone's life, watching their stories, seeing their highlights, gives the brain a small hit of social stimulation without actually delivering what the brain truly needs. It is the psychological equivalent of smelling food but never eating it. The sensation is real. The hunger stays. What is interesting is that the loneliness Gen Z reports is not the loneliness of isolation. It is not the loneliness of someone sitting in an empty room with no way to reach anyone. It is something more disorienting than that. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by contact and starved of connection. And those two things, contact and connection, are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. But for most of human history, they were harder to separate. If you were physically around people, you were probably talking to them, eating with them, working beside them, looking at their actual face. The contact and the connection arrived together. What this generation inherited was a world that figured out how to deliver the contact without the connection. Infinite contact, curated, filtered, optimized contact, but contact that moves too fast for depth, contact that rewards performance over presence, contact that is technically social but privately hollow. People rarely talk about this, but there is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being perceived constantly without ever being truly known. When every interaction is a version of you that you shaped for an audience, even a small one, some part of you starts disappearing. Not dramatically. Slowly, you start to lose track of what you actually think versus what you post, what you actually feel versus what you caption, who you actually are versus who your profile suggests you are. And then you sit with someone in real life, a friend, a family member, someone who has known you for years, and the conversation feels strange, slower, harder, more exposed. Because there is no edit button, no delete, no time to think about how this will land. Just two people in a room trying to reach each other without the buffer of a screen. What is interesting is that the generation most fluent in digital communication is often the generation most uncomfortable with unfiltered human contact. Not because they are broken, but because they were handed a tool that was never designed to replace what it ended up replacing. Connection, real connection, has always required something uncomfortable. Vulnerability, uncertainty, the risk of saying something, and watching someone's face change in real time. The mess of being genuinely known. For most of human history, there was no way around that discomfort. You either went through it or you stayed alone. But now, there is a third option. And it is always open, always warm, always available at 2 a.m. when the real thing feels too hard. You have probably noticed that scrolling never actually makes the feeling go away. You put the phone down, and the ceiling is still there. The emptiness is still there. Sometimes it is louder than it was before you picked the phone up. That is not a coincidence. That is the snack, leaving you hungrier than when you started. There is a quieter truth underneath all of this that almost never gets said. The loneliest generation is not lonely because no one is there. They are lonely because somewhere along the way, being there started to mean something different. Presence became a post. Affection became a reaction. Checking in became a story view. And the part of you that needed more than that, the part that needed someone to sit with you in the mess, to see you without the filter, to know you beyond your highlight reel, that part did not go anywhere. It just stopped expecting to be fed. What is interesting is that this might be the first generation in history that has to consciously choose depth, that has to actively resist the easiest version of connection in order to find the real one. Not because they are weaker than previous generations, but because no previous generation was handed this particular test. You are not lonely because you are broken. You are not lonely because something is wrong with you. You are lonely because you were given the most sophisticated system of contact ever built, and contact was never the same thing as connection. And some part of you has always known that.